Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The crackdown on America's civil liberties is coming. We told you that yesterday. Turns out it didn't take long. It is here now, and it's unprecedented, and it will have consequences. This will cause extremism. Actions taken to suppress extremism will cause it. Those unintended consequences, we don't know. It's very clear what's happening and what will happen. Here's the first news. Just days after Donald Trump called for breaking up the big tech monopolies in order to preserve democracy, the big tech monopolies have silenced him. Twitter has just announced the sitting president has been banned permanently from the platform that is his primary means of public communication. Of course, they waited until the Democratic Party took power and they shut it down. They are in control now. Silicon Valley oligarchs are more powerful than the president of the United States, and they want you to know it. Everywhere, the assault on speech accelerates. Glenn Greenwald is an independent journalist coming from everywhere all of a sudden, and we're going to unpack what we know at this hour. But we do know that over the last 24 hours, Twitter specifically has banned a number of different conservative accounts, not just the president. At the same time, the Chinese Communist Party, the Ayatollah of Iran, still have their accounts because they're not a threat to the ruling party here. Tonight, a competing social media service, Parler, which we told you about, is seeing massive and unprecedented surge in traffic. The site even experienced server outage because of new users tonight. Why? A couple of reasons. Mostly this. Parler is a free speech alternative to Twitter. They don't censor you. You can say what you want. The president is on Parler, and that has drawn a lot of people who realize they are being suppressed by Twitter. Parler's succeeding. What happens now? Of course, Silicon Valley is trying to kill it. Google has just removed Parler without any warning from its App Store. Apple and Amazon, which provide services that keep services like Parler online, have also threatened to shut Parler down. Amy Peacock is the chief policy advisor at Parler, and she joins us. Amy, thanks so much for coming on. This seemed to come out of nowhere. How big a threat to your company is this?
I mean, this is very huge because Apple in particular carries our app on the App Store, and as far as I know, technically there's no other way to deliver it. So if they choose to withdraw their services and hosting us on their store, we're toast there. And you know, most people like our app. Our app is a very nicely functioning piece of software. And then in terms of Amazon is also raising some problems, and I'm not sure how serious that is yet because I've yet to speak with them. I will later today. And they provide server for us, and if they were to remove their services, then we'd be down. As it is, we're having some difficulties now with the uptick in traffic, but if they took their service away, we'd be gone.
I mean, there's a huge amount. It's impossible to overstate the amount of filth and political extremism, explicit violence, pornography, whatever, on the internet. That's what the internet is. But
yes,
it's Parler.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
But
yes.
It's Parler that is being singled out. I mean, it's kind of impossible not to conclude this is political repression.
It really, because I think we do have the reputation as being the conservative platform, although we are nonpartisan. That is what everybody sees us as. We do see this as being politically singled out. The other thing is that we are competing with other platforms who have decided that they want to
extra mile for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or
decided that they want to.
This morning, CNN announced that it is working to force the Fox News channel off the air and run this company out of business. A number of prominent Democrats, including office holders, support that effort. CNN staffers have already contacted the 6 major cable carriers in this country. Those are the companies that carry our signal into your home, and pressured them to drop Fox News. Why? On the pretext that this show is directly responsible for and others on the channel are directly responsible for the violence at the U.S. Capitol this week. It is time, CNN announced, quote, that TV carriers face questions for lending their platforms to dishonest companies that profit off of disinformation and conspiracy theories. So here you have a news company calling for censorship. You have a TV network demanding that media conglomerates ban its competitors. That's terrifying. But it's also, if we're being completely honest here, kind of amusing. Because you can just imagine CNN's blustery little dwarf king calling into his morning staff call yesterday. He spent a long night sitting on the tiny throne in his apartment, feet dangling just above the floor, watching Fox News and getting angrier and angrier. By the time he reaches his minions in the CNN newsroom to deliver the day's orders, The Dwarf King's fleshy face is quivering like jello and crimson with rage. "Make them stop!" he screams. "Make them stop!" The minions jolt to attention. The first to her battle post is a former homecoming queen from Orange County who is eager to prove her chops. She's not a primetime anchor. She'd like to be, but she's still just a newsreader, a former co-host of a radio show on a contemporary hit station in Yakima, Washington, called Billy Blue and Brianna 2, The Morning Zoo. Not everyone takes her seriously. She wants to be taken seriously, and this is her chance. So she tries to remember the Dwarf King's orders. Stop Fox! That was the main command. Then there was that stream of consciousness part, the part where the boss was breathing so heavily it was hard to make out the words. There was white supremacy, insurrection, domestic terrorism, something like that. She tries to connect the dots. It's confusing, but she's pretty sure the word insurrection was in there, for sure. Someone insurrected maybe, or acted insurrectingly, something like that. No, it was definitely insurrection. So she decides to look up the word in the dictionary to see what it means. Take Merriam-Webster's word for it. That's Mrs. Merriam-Webster to you. But here's the problem. This show, she explained, refused to call that obviously highly insurrection-y event an insurrection. Literally didn't use the word. Just refused. I mean, seriously. Who would do that? Well, if you really want to know who would do that, a white person would do that. A privileged white person. Someone who, presumably, unlike her co-workers at CNN, and in fact the Dwarf King himself, was both white and privileged, afflicted with something called white privilege. So much white privilege, in fact, that it blinded this person. Because that's the thing about white privilege. If you keep doing it, you go blind. That's what the boss said. Oh, the moral lecture from the Morning Zoo lady. Perhaps he should roll his eyes on over to a mirror. Assuming you can even do that when you've been blinded by white privilege, because blind people can't see themselves, right? But maybe they should see themselves. They might stop insurrecting, stop being so white and privileged. It went on like this for an entire segment. You can look it up on the internet. And in a way, that's the good news. With enemies like this, Fox News will be around for a long, long time. Jason Whitlock is a longtime journalist. Runs Outkick. We're happy to have him on tonight. Jason, thanks for coming on. So the question I have is, have you ever seen, and you've been in competitive journalism, or in sports journalism, but you've competed against other news outlets your whole life. Have you ever seen an attempt by one to get the authorities to take the other one offline, to silence it?
Tucker, we're living in the craziest time of our lifetime, and maybe other than the Civil War, the craziest time in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
And nothing surprises me. It really doesn't. And what CNN is trying to do speaks to the level of fear and clearly the level of disruption that President Trump has caused or potentially could cause. They're just trying to silence any and everyone who doesn't demonize this guy and compare him to Adolf Hitler and the worst people in the world.
What happens when you try and do that? And can you do it? I mean, I don't think I know anyone who's thought more about social media and its effects on the country than you have. Can you really silence people? And if you try, what comes next?
Well, I certainly think you can, and they're doing it and have been pretty successful at doing this for a long time. They have amplified the voices that they agree with, and they have diminished the voices they disagree with. They have crucified Trump supporters. And I just want people to think about this. And listen, I don't agree with the way President Trump has handled himself in all situations, but he has picked on other elites. He has gone after the U.S. President, Barack Obama. He has gone after the mainstream media. He's gone after celebrities. The media and the elites have gone after working class people. Trump supporters are not elites. They don't have major platforms. They are the people. There is an attack on the people. Whether you agree or disagree with them, you cannot demonize 74 million Americans and say all of their complaints are racist or sexist or they're Nazis. You're baiting America for a civil war.
That's exactly right, and that is the distinction. And I do think I don't know if you're overstating it. I mean, this is going to cause extremism, like dangerous extremism. I'm very worried about it. But your point, I think, is the key one. They're punching down. Trump is punching laterally or up, and there's a huge difference between those two things.
Listen, in 1620, 400 years ago, people fled England because they wanted freedom of expression, freedom of religion. And here we are 400 years later, and we're stripping freedom of religion, freedom of expression. We're silencing people we disagree with. This is un-American, and it's crystal clear. We need some real leadership in this country if President-elect Joe Biden wants to step out here and offer up some real unity and peace. Make peace with Trump supporters. Treat them like human beings, even if you disagree with them.
Right.
That's the American thing to do.
Treat them like human beings, even if you disagree with them. Amen. Jason Whitlock, thank you for that.
Okay, I'm going to shut it off now, but you better pay attention, record these things because they're just taking away everything. Thank you.